Hi, I'm Jen with Woodcraft Blueprints. Today we are making a stovetop cover, also known to many people as a noodle board. For supplies for this, you're gonna need 1x6 pine lumber, 1x4 pine lumber. You're gonna need 4 foot of that, and then you're gonna also need about 130 inches of the 1x6. So that'd be an 8 footer plus 31 inches. We're also gonna need 1 1/4 inch screws. I recommend GRK trim head screws. You're also gonna need some handles, whatever you want. I like these pulls because you can fasten the screws from the front. So we're gonna need 4 pieces of the 1x6 at 30 inches. With your 8 foot board, you always want to trim off the first couple inches. So we start with a nice clean edge here. So I'm gonna bring this down. I'm gonna mark, keeping my tape measure straight at 30 inches. You really want all of these pieces the same exact length. I'm gonna wait to cut the 1x4s, and you'll see why here in a minute. But I'm gonna go ahead and sand these 1x6s. It's easier to sand. You can do a better job sanding now than after when it's assembled. Although I will do a final finish sanding later. So with these, I'm gonna sand both faces and also the edges and the corners as well. These are really sharp corners. Nobody wants to get a splinter when they pick up their tray. So that's why I'm gonna sand those off. And I'm using 150 grit sandpaper. Once we're done sanding, I'm going to get these lined up here, and I'm going to measure the width of here. 21 15/16. Okay, so now we get to arrange the boards in the order in which they're going to be put together. So one thing I'm going to look at, first I'll put it all face up. I mean face up, the side that will be visible, because with woodworking, we're always trying to hide the defects. So those are gonna be on the back side. Now, second thing I'm gonna look at is the wood grain, the end here, because we want smiley faces and frowns, smiley, frown. We want to alternate the wood grain pattern. Now I'm going to flip this over so that it's face down. We're going to assemble it from the back in order to hide all of those screw holes that we're going to be making here in a minute. Then we're going to need to put these 1x6s on our 1x4s, edges here, just to help me get these boards lined up, because we want the ends to be flush here. Probably easier to start on one side. This takes a minute to get it kind of situated, but you want to take your time here so that, you know, it looks good, it's not crooked. All right, now we're ready to fasten these boards down. So if I have a long clamp, you can actually kind of help hold this together with a clamp. Not tight, not a whole lot of pressure, because I want these boards to stay flat. And I also don't want to put, you know, any dent marks on here, but just enough to maybe minimize some gaps and just kind of hold it together. I don't want the end grain longer than that 1x4, so I'm making sure that that's going to be covered. But you want to be about about 1 1/4 inch from each end of the board. Don't put them like right in the center. Have those screws spaced out a little bit. Take your clamp off, you can flip it over. Hey, now it's starting to look like an actual stovetop cover now. I'm actually going to do a final sanding after I have those. All right, now this is ready to stain, and I'm actually going to use a pre-stained wood conditioner on before I apply the stain. what this does, it just helps prevent the stain from being blotchy. Now we're ready to apply stain. I'm using Varthane wood stain. The color is aged barrel. This is an oil-based stain. So after this stain is applied, I let this dry thoroughly before I put the clear coat on, by the way. Once your stain is dried, and it has to be dried to the touch. Now, honestly, what I do is I put it out in the sun for a few hours just to speed that process up, and it's dried to the touch. Now I can put my clear coat on. My favorite clear coat for interior is polyacrylic, but it also comes in this spray version, and this is actually what I like to use because it's just so much faster. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take this out over there and do just spray a coat on. Once your clear coat is dry, you can feel it's a little rough. So what I like to do is take a really, really fine sandpaper. So this is 1000 grit, and just barely go with the wood grain, just kind of go across it. And what that's going to do is just take off that little bit of roughness, and you're going to be left with a really, really smooth finish. So just a couple. It doesn't take a whole lot. Feel if you missed a spot too. Next, we're ready to put the handles on, and these are actually called pulls. Pull in the center of the 1x4, which is at 1 3/4, 8 1/2, 8 1/2. 1 3/4. And you can add a initial, a monogram, a name, whatever you want, just to customize this, and then you can then your selling price goes up as well. So there you have it. Here is our noodle board, also known as the stovetop cover. So if you guys make this, there's also a blog post that I can link below for some step-by-step instructions if if you learn that way. But either way, I'd love to see if you make this, please share it with me.